There's a place in London where the sun barely matters, where your name disappears and becomes a number, where cameras watch you eat, sleep, and even use the bathroom. A place so secretive that even some police officers don't know what really happens inside. They call it Britain's Guantánamo Bay, but it's not in some desert far away. It's right here, in southeast London, hidden in plain sight. And what happens behind those walls is more disturbing than most people realize. This is the story of Belmarsh Prison. If you want to discover the secrets that governments don't want you to know, hit that subscribe button right now. And drop a comment telling me, have you ever heard of Belmarsh before watching this video? Picture this. It's a normal Tuesday morning in Thamesmead, a quiet neighborhood in southeast London. People are going to work. Kids are walking to school. Everything looks ordinary. But if you look carefully toward Western Way, you'll see something that doesn't quite fit. Massive concrete walls, razor wire gleaming in the morning light, towers with guards watching everything. It looks like something from a movie about maximum security prisons. Except this isn't a movie. This is real. Belmarsh Prison opened its gates in 1991. From the very beginning, it was different from other prisons in Britain. It wasn't built to give people a second chance. It wasn't designed to help people change their lives. It was built to hold the most dangerous people in the country. People the government was terrified of. People they never wanted to see free again. The prison can hold over 900 inmates. But that number doesn't tell you the real story. Because inside Belmarsh, there's another prison. A secret prison within the prison. And we'll get to that later. Trust me, you'll want to hear about it. Let me tell you about someone who knows Belmarsh better than almost anyone. His name is Julian Assange. You might have heard of him. He's the man who created WikiLeaks, a website that published secret government documents. Documents that showed what powerful countries were really doing behind closed doors. For 7 years, Assange hid inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Then, in April 2019, British police dragged him out and drove him straight to Belmarsh. And suddenly, the man who had exposed the secrets of the most powerful governments was locked in a place where he had no power at all. Assange spent years in Belmarsh, and what he experienced there shocked the world. He was kept in the high-security unit, 23 hours a day in a tiny cell, 1 hour outside, if he was lucky. Cameras everywhere, guards watching his every move. The United Nations sent an expert to investigate. And you know what that expert said? He said what was happening to Assange looked like torture. This wasn't happening in some far-off dictatorship. This was happening in Britain. And Assange wasn't even convicted of a crime in Britain. The point is this. If this could happen to someone the whole world was watching, what happens to the people nobody's watching? Let me share some numbers with you. Numbers that most people never hear about. In 2024, there were over 300 incidents of self-harm in Belmarsh. That's more than one person hurting themselves every single day. People so desperate, so hopeless, that they hurt their own bodies just to feel something. Violence is everywhere. Inmates attacking each other. Inmates attacking guards. In one inspection report, some prisoners said they only got 90 minutes out of their cells each day. 90 minutes. The other 22.5 hours? Locked in a tiny room, alone with their thoughts. Many said they didn't feel safe. Mental health services were stretched so thin that people who desperately needed help couldn't get it. The prisoners have a nickname for Belmarsh. They call it Hellmarsh. It's not a joke. It's a warning. Former inmates talk about the constant noise. Screaming. Banging on walls. The sound of men slowly losing their minds. They talk about the food, the cramped, cold cells, and the feeling that nobody cares if you live or die. One former prisoner described it like this. Every day feels the same. You wake up in your cell. You wait. You go back to your cell. You eat terrible food. You wait some more. Then you try to sleep. And then you wake up and do it all again. Day after day. Week after week. Year after year. Can you imagine living like that? Now, let's talk about the invisible prisoners of Belmarsh. When the news mentions Belmarsh, they talk about Julian Assange, or Wayne Couzens, the police officer who committed a terrible murder. But what about the hundreds of other men locked inside? Many of them are there because the government suspects they might be terrorists. Notice I said suspects, not convicted. After September 11th, 2001, Britain passed special laws that allowed them to lock people up without trial. No jury. No chance to defend yourself properly. And where did they send these people? Belmarsh. For months, sometimes years, men sat in that prison not knowing if they'd ever get out. Some were eventually released with no charges. No apology. Nothing. Let me walk you through what it's like to enter Belmarsh as a visitor. First, you need permission weeks in advance. When you arrive, you go through security that makes airports look relaxed. Metal detectors, body scanners, drug dogs. They take your photo and give you a badge with a number on it. Even as a visitor, you become a number. Then you wait. Finally, you're allowed into the visiting area. You sit at a table. Your loved one sits across from you. You can talk, but guards are watching. Cameras are recording. You can hold hands, but that's it. Every word is monitored. The visit lasts an hour, maybe less. Then it's over. Your loved one goes back to their cell. You go back to the outside world. Here's something that makes Belmarsh different: the surveillance. Cameras everywhere. In the hallways, common areas, pointing at cell doors. Prisoners have almost no privacy. Everything they do is watched. Everything they say can be recorded. You might think, so what? They're criminals. But in most democratic countries, we believe in human dignity. The idea that even people who have done terrible things are still human beings who deserve basic respect. The United Nations says prisoners should have some privacy, some dignity. But in Belmarsh, that line gets very blurry. This isn't just a prison. It's a system designed to make you feel powerless, watched, and completely alone. Imagine a place where the guards can search your cell anytime, read your letters, listen to your phone calls, and watch you on camera 24 hours a day. Welcome to Belmarsh, Britain's most notorious prison. Of course, there's a reason for all this security. Belmarsh holds dangerous people. People who might try to escape, plan attacks, or hurt others. But where's the line? When does watching someone become breaking them down? These are the questions nobody wants to answer. Now, let's talk about the people we often forget: the guards. It's easy to see them as just the ones who lock the doors. But they're human too, and working in a place like Belmarsh changes you. Imagine showing up to work every day surrounded by some of the most dangerous people in the country, knowing violence could erupt at any moment. Guards get attacked. They work long, stressful hours, see things that haunt them, and hear stories that keep them up at night. Because of security rules, they can't even talk about it with their families. They carry it all alone. Some guards handle it with professionalism. They know treating prisoners with basic dignity makes everyone safer. But for others, the stress breaks them. They become cold, hard, even cruel. This creates a vicious cycle. Prisoners who are treated badly become more violent, which makes guards more fearful, which makes them treat prisoners even worse. Round and round it goes. Nobody wins. Here's something else to think about. Belmarsh holds the worst of the worst. But who decides who's dangerous enough to end up there? Sometimes, it's a jury after a trial. That makes sense. But what about the terror suspects held for years without a trial after September 11th? They were put there by government officials and intelligence agencies, based on secret information. Does that sound fair? And if it can happen to them, could it happen to anyone? After the September 11th attacks, the world got scared. Britain was no exception, and Belmarsh became ground zero for the UK's war on terror. Politicians said it was necessary to keep Britain safe. But what they didn't talk about was the human cost. Men locked away for years based on suspicion, lives ruined, families torn apart. And here's the big question: did it actually make us safer? Some experts say yes. Others say it just created more anger and resentment, feeding the very thing it was trying to stop. What's strange is how quiet Belmarsh is in the media. You hear about it when a famous name gets sent there, but the day-to-day reality for the hundreds of men living there right now? Silence. The government says it's for security, but maybe it's also convenient. Out of sight, out of mind. The less we know, the less we question it. But these men are still there, living in those conditions, and we, the taxpayers, are paying for it. Every now and then, a little bit of light gets through. Inspection reports find serious problems: overcrowding, violence, poor mental health support. The prison promises to improve, but a year later, inspectors find the same problems, sometimes even worse. It's like trying to fix a boat designed to leak. The problem might be the entire concept. When you design a prison to be this harsh, it has consequences. It damages people. Most prisoners eventually get out. So, what kind of person emerges after years in Belmarsh? Are they better, or are they broken? The story of Belmarsh is far from over. In fact, what I've told you is just the beginning. Deep inside that prison, there's another, darker layer. A place so secretive that even other prisoners fear it. It's called the High Security Unit, and what happens there will shock you. But before we go deeper, I need you to do something. If this video has opened your eyes, Leave a comment right now. Tell me, should places like Belmarsh exist? Your opinion matters. Share it below and keep watching. Because what comes next will change how you see justice, punishment, and human rights forever. The real story of Belmarsh is just getting started. The story of Belmarsh is far from over. What I've told you so far is just the beginning. Because deep inside that prison, there's another, darker layer. A place so secretive and severe that even other prisoners fear it. It's called the High Security Unit, or HSU. And what happens there will shock you. But before we go deeper, I need you to do something. If this video has opened your eyes to what's happening at Belmarsh, leave a comment right now. Tell me, should places like this exist in a democratic society? Do we need them for safety, or have we gone too far? Your opinion matters, so share it below. And keep watching, because what comes next will change how you see justice, punishment, and human rights forever. Remember when I said there's a secret prison inside Belmarsh? Well, now it's time to talk about it. The HSU. Most people have never heard of it, and that's exactly how the government wants it. The HSU holds up to 48 prisoners. Just 48. But these aren't your typical maximum security prisoners. These are the ones considered so dangerous, so high risk, that they can't mix with anyone else. Think about that. In a prison already full of the most violent criminals, there are 48 men considered too dangerous even for them. So, what gets someone sent to the HSU? Sometimes it's their crime on the outside, something so shocking the government demands extra security. Sometimes it's what they might do on the inside. Maybe intelligence agencies think they'll try to escape or radicalize others. And sometimes it's not clear at all why someone is there. And that's the scary part. Let me paint a picture of life in the high security unit. You wake up in a cell that's about 12 feet by 8 feet, smaller than many bathrooms. There's a bed, a toilet, a sink, and maybe a small desk. You might spend 23 hours a day in this cell. Some get even less time out. When you do leave, you're just moved to another locked space, like an exercise yard surrounded by high walls and razor wire. Everything is controlled. When you eat, when you shower, when you make a phone call. Visits are often through glass, talking on a phone to your loved one. No touching, no real human contact. Can you imagine living like that for years? Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Isolation is a weapon. Scientists have studied what happens to the human brain when it's isolated for long periods, and the results are disturbing. People lose track of time, their minds play tricks on them, and they start to see and hear things that aren't there. Paranoia and severe depression become almost universal. The United Nations has said that solitary confinement for more than 15 days can be considered torture. 15 days. Some men in the HSU have been there for years. The authorities say it's necessary for safety. But if we break their minds in the process, what have we accomplished? We'll have turned dangerous people into destroyed people. And eventually, most of them will get out. What kind of person emerges from years of that kind of isolation? Julian Assange spent years in the HSU. His story became international news, which put pressure on the authorities. But Assange had something most HSU prisoners don't have: attention. Now, think about the other 47 men in there, the ones whose names you don't know. What happens to them when nobody is watching? Without transparency or oversight, how would we ever know if they truly belong there? Then there's Charles Bronson. He's been in prison since 1974. 50 years. His original crime got him 7 years, but he never left, often due to violent incidents inside. He spent decades in places like the HSU, and even he, a man famous for his toughness, has described the isolation as mental torture. If a man known for his violence says isolation breaks you, what does that tell you? And here's the great irony of Belmarsh. It was designed to prevent terrorism, but some experts say it might actually create more of it. This is the radicalization paradox. You take young men suspected of extremist views, lock them in harsh, isolated conditions, and it can confirm their belief that the system is against them, pushing them further down a dark path. Let's not forget the families. Belmarsh is a men's prison, but the wives, mothers, and children on the outside are punished too. They face the emotional and financial strain of having a loved one in Britain's most notorious prison. Studies show that prisoners with strong family ties are less likely to reoffend. But the system makes maintaining those ties incredibly difficult. And what about the cost? It costs tens of thousands of pounds per year to keep just one person in Belmarsh, with the HSU likely costing even more. What if we invested that money in rehabilitation, mental health, and education instead? Would that make us safer in the long run? It's easier to just lock people away and forget them. Finally, think about the guards working in the HSU. Every day, they walk into a place heavy with despair. They are not therapists, but they are human. They watch men deteriorate mentally, and there's little they can do. Some become detached to cope, while others carry the emotional burden home with them every single night. The story of Belmarsh's HSU raises difficult questions about justice, safety, and our own humanity. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Did you know that prison guards often suffer from the same psychological trauma as soldiers in combat? It's called compassion fatigue or secondary trauma. When you're exposed to other people's suffering day after day, it damages you. Guards at high-security prisons like Belmarsh in London have higher rates of stress-related illness, PTSD, substance abuse, and family problems. They're casualties of the system too, just a different kind. Every few years, a scandal breaks about Belmarsh. A journalist exposes something terrible. Politicians promise reforms, but real change never seems to come. Why? Well, part of it is money. Real reform costs a lot, and governments are often reluctant to spend it. But a bigger part is politics. It's hard to win elections by being soft on crime. So, the system grinds on, and the people inside, both prisoners and staff, keep suffering. Meanwhile, the rest of us just go about our lives, out of sight, out of mind. But here's something that should concern us all. Most prisoners, even from a place like Belmarsh, eventually get released. They finish their sentences, and they're back on the streets. Now, think about the conditions they've endured. Years of harsh isolation, minimal mental health support, and little to no real rehabilitation. What kind of person do you think emerges from that environment? Are they ready to rejoin society? Or are they more damaged, angry, and potentially more dangerous than when they went in? Reoffending rates in the UK are high, which suggests our system isn't working. It raises a critical question. Are we actually trying to rehabilitate people, or just warehouse them? Some countries do it differently. Norway, for instance, focuses heavily on rehabilitation, treating prisoners with dignity and preparing them for release. And guess what? They have some of the lowest reoffending rates in the world. It's a model that requires a fundamental shift in how we view punishment and justice. It means believing people can change. That's a hard sell, especially for victims of crime. But the reality is stark. We can either invest in making people better, or we can keep releasing broken people back into our communities. Which future sounds safer to you? Belmarsh also uses technology in ways most people don't realize. Beyond the obvious cameras, there are body scanners that can see through clothing, electronic monitoring that tracks every prisoner's location, and signal jammers to block phones. This tech is all about control and surveillance, not rehabilitation. It sends a clear message to the inmates. You are not trusted. You are a threat to be managed. What does that do to a person's sense of self? How do you maintain your humanity when you're treated like a dangerous object? You might have heard Belmarsh being compared to Guantánamo Bay, and there's a reason for that. Guantánamo is infamous for human rights abuses and indefinite detention. Belmarsh has been used for similar purposes, like holding terror suspects indefinitely after September 11th. The conditions have been described as bordering on torture. But because it's in Britain, a democracy with a reputation for the rule of law, it avoids the same level of global scrutiny. That should worry us. A democracy should be held to the highest standard, not given a free pass. But not everyone is silent. Over the years, human rights lawyers, organizations like Amnesty International, former prisoners, and even some staff have spoken out. This resistance is vital because it keeps a spotlight on the issues. But it's a tough battle. Most people think, they did the crime, they deserve the punishment. That is until it affects someone they love. But a just society should care about how it treats everyone, especially those who have done wrong. How we treat them says everything about who we are. So, after hearing all this, what do you think? Is a prison like Belmarsh a necessary evil that keeps us safe? Or does it create more problems than it solves? These aren't easy questions, but we can't ignore them. Belmarsh is real. It's happening right now, funded by tax money, in our name. We have a responsibility to know what's going on and decide if this is the system we truly want. Before you go, if you believe these stories need to be told, hit that subscribe button and share this video. And please, leave a comment below. Do you think our maximum security prisons need to change? I really want to hear your thoughts. Change starts with awareness and asking the hard questions. The story of Belmarsh isn't over. The only question is, will we keep paying attention or will we look away? The choice is ours.